Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and thank you so much for joining me on another document deep dive. This time, we're going to be going into the recent court documents that have been revealed to the public through these trials. Now, I've been talking about for the last week that I was going to do a deep dive on that original 43-page memorandum out there. Now, I wasn't sure whether that was the full indictment, and sure enough, it wasn't. There's more documents coming on, but what that was a lot of the racketeering and RICO charges. And if you haven't been watching this channel and you're a first-timer, what do we believe in? We believe in reading the whole thing and actually doing, quote-unquote, deep research. We don't just tell you nonsense. We don't look at just the highlights. We take you on a journey through the document. And that's why I feel like this video is probably going to be in two separate parts. Now, as everybody knows, Allison Mack has pled guilty. She's more than likely going to be testifying against Keith Raniere in the NXIVM trial. I assume most of you that are watching this are somewhat familiar with the trial itself. Raniere is the only one that seems to be really on trial at all at this point. Bronfman actually had her plea hearing and complete allocation. You can read that there. I'll be doing a separate video on what she actually said in court. But remember, 21 to 72 months. If she's sentenced to anything more than 27 months, she can appeal. And she put down $6 million in this conviction. I want to point out that the court documents that we're going to read through also show that she gave $5 million to Raniere's fund right out of the gates. This is a pittance. And what she pled to is nothing compared to what's in these documents. And that's why it's going to be so important when we go over them. Yes, you will see evidence of what you see behind me in these documents on more than one occasion. We're going to take you right through that. In fact, there's a lot of issues that are going on with this instance, and I've talked about how he's not being charged with this and Mack's not being charged with this, yet they accidentally copied it over. So one of the other documents we're going to be doing a deep dive into sometime down the line is this one, and you can see what B says. I don't want to see it. I want to say it. I want to keep this video monetized and have the audience grow as we live stream this. If you're not subscribed, by the way, make sure hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. But as you can see, a lot of stuff is coming out, and there's a lot in this memorandum that we're about to read. Now, for anybody that's actually really new to this, I want to tell them that there's a pretty decent, very low-level synopsis on Mack, Nancy Salzman, Lauren Salzman. By the way, all those people we're going to be discussing in the document. Kathy Russell does not come up so much. A lot of Jane Doe's in here. And then, of course, Claire Bronfman, who again and again and again in this documentation seems to be at the head of this situation in so many ways, especially financial. And we're going to get into a lot of things beyond just the trafficking and DOS, the sex slave cult, if you will, but that's all in here. So without further ado, let's just get right into it and start reading through this document. So on page 4, and that's how I'm going to do this, is I already have some notes, you know, like you're supposed to. There we go. So let's start right here. So this is it's the first thing I want to read right here. Is this one? Yes. On July 23rd, 2018, a federal grand jury in Eastern District of New York returned a superseding indictment charging the defendants with participating in a long-running racketeering conspiracy among other crimes. So that really sets the basis for this whole document. It's all RICO because they've been working together for well over a decade, according to this. I think 2007 are some of the first references. Okay. So next, let's see, we're going to type that in. Is that it at trial? Let's see, is that the next one? Sorry, guys. This is a pretty long document. That's number 4, so we're going to go to the next one. No. That's it right here. All right, so it then says, the evidence in this trial will demonstrate the primary functions of the enterprise were to, 1, recruit other individuals to work in one or more of the pyramid organizations at times. And this talks about consumer byline and how that was used as a model, and the multi-level marketing schemes that essentially bankrupt people at the lower rungs. And this is how they stayed financially afloat, at least this organization, because they also mentioned some of the side organizations. Probably going to have to do a whole separate video on that, but we will get there in this. Okay, so the pyramid organizations, that's one aspect. At times to serve as sexual partners for Raniere. 2, to protect the enterprise by, among other things, surveilling and attacking perceived enemies of Raniere and NXIVM. So I want to really emphasize the surveillance, because that comes up several different times. And it gets more detailed. They talk about private investigators and who exactly they were targeting. But think about that. They were surveilling people as well. Okay, let's continue. Promoting the enterprise through efforts to gain influence and power. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you know, and we're going to go over in this document since we're going all the way through it, that one of them was a presidential candidate. And the New York Post revealed who that was in 2007 because it was a primary at the time, and it was Hillary Clinton. And they had run a scheme to illegally fund her campaign for political influence. Do you understand? These are high-level players. The Bronfman sisters already knew Hillary because Hillary and Bill knew her father very well. Hillary spoke at their father's memorial service. Bill gave him the Medal of Freedom. He was the head of the World Jewish Congress. He got alongside Gerald Ford and others. I've shown that video as well. And Hillary Clinton really talked about him as a mentor. So the Bronfmans funneling money into that campaign for political influence really isn't anything new. All right? So again, they're protecting the enterprise. They're finding sexual partners for Raniere. They're funding it through the pyramid scheme. Okay? Members of the enterprise, including defendants, generally held positions at NXIVM, its affiliated organizations. Now, notice they say that because they even bring up the Rainbow Coalition School. And again, I think I'm going to have to do a whole video on that because it's very brief in this document. And I want to say that there's a slew of documentation coming out. And one of the hopeful things in this, and we'll get to it as we go through the document, is that they're going to bring up things that they're not charged with in court. But the problem is that we already have Mack and Bronfman pleading guilty, and Lauren Salzman. I think Nancy, I believe, also pled guilty. So both Salzman's pleading guilty, Mack pleading guilty, Bronfman pleading guilty, when the things she's alleged to have done in this documentation are just beyond words, are alarming. Because if Raniere goes down for all this stuff and that's the end of it, we really haven't cut the head off the multi-level snake that is this operation. I promise you. There's a lot going on here. Okay? So, let's see. Let's get to the racketeering next part. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Sorry, folks. There's a lot to do here. There we go. So, this is the next section that I want to read. Racketeering Acts 2 and 4 allege conspiracies to commit identity theft to John Doe 1 and 2 and Jane Doe 2 respectively. So this gets into the fact that they were hacking people, that they were committing identity theft. It gets in later how they were committing credit card fraud on a Jane Doe 7. We'll get into that, where they were extracting all of her money and assets after she was already dead. I have a suspicion of who that is, but I haven't been able to confirm it, so I'm not going to say it on this video. Again, there's a lot of this stuff out there, okay? These racketeering acts arise out of schemes of defendants and co-conspirators, including who? Raniere, Bronfman, Russell. Now, Russell was the bookkeeper. Remember, the one that pled the fifth so many times, and the one that we saw in that short little Rolling Stone piece, and Nancy Salzman, to obtain passwords and monitor the email accounts belonging to these individuals. And notice one of the names is completely blacked out. You see that? Defendants and co-conspirators believe John Doe 1 and John Doe 2, blacked out, were participants in a large-scale plot to destroy Raniere and NXIVM. So in other words, their paranoia, or maybe not, maybe they were going after him. After all, there was a lot of sick things going on in this organization. Okay? There's not a lot of blacked out names, and that comes up once or twice. I believe it's going to be the same person. So let's get into the Racketeering Act 5, because there's, again, a lot of these, and we're going through. These are the highlights. Guys, I spent a lot of time with this document. That's why we're going to break this up into at least 2 videos. We might even break it up into 3. So, again, let's see. We're participants in a large-scale plot to destroy Raniere. Let's get to the next act. There we go. All right. Racketeering Act 5 alleges conspiracy to encourage and induce the illegal entry of an alien for financial gain and money laundering. Notice the money laundering. I've talked about this aspect of NXIVM. You see, they wanted to keep all of this money hidden, so they would come in, it gets a little bit more elaborate later, with smaller amounts of money, less than $10,000, to bring people into the country. But this is really, just one little part of the trafficking operation as well, which they talk about in here. Okay, this racketeering act arises out of the scheme of defendants and co-conspirators, including who? Bronfman. I'm going to keep saying it. Bronfman. Claire Bronfman is extremely involved in this and is getting an Epstein-like slap on the wrist to obtain an investor visa for Jane Doe 3. Now remember, one of the things she was actually guilty of after she pled to was harboring an illegal alien for free labor. Now, I don't even get into a lot of the labor marketing schemes in the highlights because there's just so much to go through. But basically, she obtained the visa for Jane Doe 3 to work in the United States by making it falsely appear as if she had funds to qualify for an investor visa. So she doesn't have any money, but Bronfman makes it look like she has money. So she can come in, give her a home in Albany, New York, did same later with Clifton Park, all right, had her join and recruit others in this pyramid organization and recruit people into DOS. And yes, DOS is the, the sex cult that Raniere was the ultimate master in a master-slave situation. And when you find out some of the details in this document, including, not only degrading women, telling them not to be prideful, instructing them, having actual lessons on that, and then having them on calorie-restricted diets. All of that is in here. All of it. Oh, so let's continue on to the next one. Like I said, this is a deep dive, guys. I hope you are strapped in because some of the things that are in here are just unbelievable. All right, next. All right, so now we're going to get to the point where Lauren Salzman, she's pled guilty to keeping 2 women in a room for 2 years and threatening them to go back to Mexico if they disobeyed. And yes, they are part of, if you've noticed, the sex trafficking. Well, guess what? It goes even beyond that. We're going to read this, but they make good on their threats. That's what we're going to read right now. You see, when the one woman, Jane Doe number 4, decided it was time to go because she found interest in another man, well, she left the room. And as she was threatened, she was driven to Mexico. They took her back to Mexico, just like they promised they would, at Raniere's direction by co-conspirators and defendants, and co-conspirators instructed her family to tell her that unless she completed certain work for Raniere's benefits, she would not receive her identification documents that she needed, including her birth certificate. So just so you understand, they make good on their threats. They have private investigators. They surveil people. They get your passwords. They get into your emails. They keep sex slaves in rooms for years. And when they disobey or they're prideful, well, they make good on those threats. Oh, so let's keep going because this is a long document, folks. And I think that when we hit the 20-minute mark, we're going to take a quick break And you can come on back for part 2. We're going to continue right through this documentation because there's a lot to go through. This may end up being 3 or 4 videos, I'm not going to lie. A lot to go through here. 7 through 10. All right, the next racketeering acts. 7 through 10 and counts 2 through 6 relate to the defendants and co-conspirators participant in DOS and include the acts and charges involving what? Variously, extortion, wire fraud conspiracy, sex trafficking, attempted sex trafficking conspiracy, and forced labor conspiracy. I mean, God. Oh. DOS was Ranieri's led pyramid organization comprised of lines of masters who recruited groups of slaves. DOS masters recruited slaves, including Jane Doe's 5, 6, and 8, by falsely describing it as a secret women's empowerment group and concealing Ranieri's participation and leadership. Prospective slaves were required to provide collateral, including damaging confessions about themselves and loved ones, truthful or not, rights to financial assets. Think about that. Think about all the extortion they had on these women. They had nude photos, videos of them compromising situations, talking about things that they had or hadn't done, the rights to their financial assets. I mean, come on. And that prevented them from leaving the group or disclosing it to others. All right, let's get to the next ones. Yes. Act 10. Here we go. So Act 10 alleges and Count 7 charges conspiracy to commit identity theft. So here's what I was talking about with Jane Doe number 7. So again, Ranieri is having a sexual relationship with 7, and I suspect who it is. Bronfman knows this. The other women he had slept with before also knew this. And remember, they are part of a manipulation scheme. This is a RICO count for a reason because they are all working together. Now, this is what they did here. This racketeering act and substantive count arise out of the scheme in which defendants and co-conspirators, including Bronfman and Ranieri, facilitated Ranieri's use of a credit card that had belonged to Jane Doe 7 after her death. The scheme was part of a long-standing practice of defendants and co-conspirators to keep all money and assets out of Ranieri's name. So he was able to use the stuff, keep it out of his name, and who facilitated it? Bronfman facilitated the scheme by arranging for payments of Jane Doe 7's credit card bill. So in other words, she paid it off separately. So as it was being used and spent and they were collecting stuff on her estate, she was covering it up by actually paying the bill. At trial, the government will introduce evidence demonstrating that the defendant and co-conspirators kept money out of Ranieri's name to allow him to avoid paying taxes and make him judgment-proof. Now, the judgment-proof in that is very, very much what I'm interested in. All right. Let's see. Let's continue on. At trial, the government intends. Let's see what the government intends. Accordingly, at trial, the government intends to offer evidence, detailed below, of uncharged crimes and other acts that are direct proof of racketeering conspiracy and substantive conspiracies charged in the indictment or are inextricably intertwined with those conspiracies. But wait a minute, conspiracies don't happen. I thought conspiracies don't happen, but apparently not only do they happen, but the government is going to offer evidence of them, detailed below, okay? But they're not going to charge them with all these conspiracies. That's what's really upsetting when you see the level of the crimes in this, guys. You understand what I'm saying? Do you hear me? Why I'm a little upset? But at the same time, during the trial, a lot of other things could be coming out. All right, so we got to see. All right, so now they talk about the admission of that evidence coming up. The Second Circuit's relatedness requires that predicates act must be related to each other horizontal. Is this the one I want? I'm sorry, guys. Am I on the right page? Accordingly, the government... No, it's the next one. Sorry, guys. This was not the section. Here we go. Indictment. Here it is right here. The Second Circuit has long upheld the admission of information about uncharged crimes and other acts in racketeering cases as direct evidence to establish or enterprise a pattern of racketeering. They also mentioned like the Gambino crime family as an example. So in this case, but again, there is no trial for Bronfman. There is no trial for Mack. Lauren Salzman has pled guilty. Kathy Russell has pled the fifth. By the way, they're having issues finding jurors for the Raniere trial that's supposed to start in the beginning of May. Was already supposed to start right here at the end of April, but pushed back, I suspect, again, to allow Claire Bronfman to arrange whatever deal that she had to do. Like, I mean, again, 21 to 72 months. She can appeal anything over 27, $6 million. Nothing. Sweetheart deal. Sweetheart deal. As you see, as we read through this stuff. Think about all the crimes we've already gone through. And I'm not even really halfway through. We may just make this a super long broadcast. Why not? By the way, all of you who are joining me live, thank you so much. If you haven't yet, smash the thumbs up button, subscribe, ring that bell, and we're going to continue on. Okay? So here they talk about violent uncharged acts such as murder. I want to talk about that. Okay? Why is that important? Courts have upheld the principle even in the cases where the government sought to admit violent uncharged acts such as murder. See the Rico Gambino crime family? Well, if you've watched some of my other videos on this, and one of the videos that I think has not gotten enough play, in my opinion, only about 4,000 views when my NXIVM stuff has done a little bit better, is the hidden video of Raniere talking about having somebody killed, people killed, because of his beliefs. Now, there's a lot of other stuff, hidden video. There's an interview in this with a woman who says that she started a sexual relationship with Raniere when I believe she was 11 or 12 years old. And again, in this court document, they actually start talking about some of the younger girls that's about to be coming up. And you find out that one of those girls, one of those teenage girls, became the first member of DOS, this slave cult. So when they talk about, it's interesting to me that they're not going to try to make the case or charge it, but when they talk about violent uncharged acts and bringing up things that they're not charged with, I am interested to see what exactly will come out in this Raniere trial. I'm very disappointed again that Claire Bronfman, with all this stuff, was able to make a deal as sweet as we've seen. All right, so let's continue. Is that it? No. No. Is that it? Yes, it is. So here we go, right here. This is the first case, I believe, in this document where you start seeing that Raniere is having a quote-unquote sexual relationship with a 14-year-old girl. Or, I'm sorry. No, this isn't the... This is a 14-year period. I'm sorry. This is, let's see. This is something completely different. I apologize, guys. See, I make mistakes. With two developed, explain why appointed. There we go. So let's keep going. All right. So as I discussed before, when there were breaches with some of the women that Raniere was trying to control, they called them breaches. They were often arbitrary. They were often financially based. But this is how they were dealt with. Breaches were often arbitrary, and NXIVM members could be told they were in breach for any number of things, including failing to pay debts they purportedly owed, failing to complete assignments or tasks, supposed lack of a work ethic, failing to lose weight or commit to a diet, exhibiting pride, playing the victim. Think about all these psychological games that he was playing with these women. Or causing negative publicity for NXIVM or Raniere. The concept of ethical breaches was used to manipulate NXIVM members into healing the breach and completing tasks that would who? Benefit the defendant and their co-conspirators. Do you see how this was set up? Some NXIVM courses included derogatory teachings about women, including that women are prideful and play the victim card. Now listen, First of all, you can't say that an entire sex or entire race or entire religion are prideful. And what's wrong with actually having pride in yourself? I think that's a, pretty good thing to have. Now, some people could argue too much pride and you're arrogant. You almost become maybe even vain, or vanity steps in, things like that. But to be proud of yourself is a good thing that actually lifts your self-esteem up. So you see how a lot of this control is, all right? So let's continue. One of the training titles was Society of Protectors, had a selection devoted to humiliating female participants and focus on the need to break women's pride. This guy's such a gentleman. Not only does he get them when they're in their teens and sometimes preteens, and then bring them up through brainwashing, but if he has them as women, he lets them know they can't be prideful in this society. I mean, this makes me want to puke. It lets me know that, if you haven't seen some of my other stuff out there on MK Ultra, please go check that out, because I've done a ton of work over on MK Ultra. It lets me know mind control is real. I mean, these women were absolutely under a form of mind control. The question is, is it just Raniere, or is this a bigger thing? Is there a real reason why Claire Bronfman is involved in this? And I suspect there is. Guys, I'm going to tell you what. We've been doing 26 minutes in this. I'm going to take, if you're watching this live, again, thank you so much. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to come back live with the second half of this document, where we're going to reveal even more on this racketeering document, the role of Bronfman's, some more very alarming stuff about some of Raniere's victims, and a lot more. Please, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. Remember, I'm going to be back at this same address in just 5 minutes, so stick around. Go grab some popcorn, I guess. I don't know if that's what you're doing right now. And if you're not watching it live, you can just go to the next video. And we're going to continue to do a NXIVM court document series as more and more comes out, and continue to cover this story, because I really believe that there's a lot more to the story that's being told to the public. So we'll see you soon. And remember, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Be back in a moment.